Just going to make a quick video here for the Popcorn Bowlers. So we're ready for week 1 of the NFL. Let's get right into it. Just going to go through all the important tabs here on the fantasy app. So whenever you load it up, you should see your first matchup here. Looks like I'm going to go against Taylor in the first week. You click on my team there, and what it'll actually bring up here for you is just your roster. You can see up here at the top, there's different tabs that you can click on. Matchups, players, and league. We'll go each of those really quick here. First up is the roster. First thing really to look at here as far as something new is it actually added this little quick lineup feature. So this will actually have the ESPN app set your lineup for you. And what it'll do is it'll just take out any players that you have on the bye and swap them out with bench players that are playing or any players that are injured. It'll swap them out for you, but I don't know how well it works because I've never seen it on here, and that kind of takes the fun out of it. But if you think you're going to be traveling or whatever, that's a good option instead of just not doing anything with your team and taking the L. But anyway, you can see your lineup here. This top half is going to be your starting lineup. That's just pretty much your draft order of the players that you selected. So you can take a look. It's got their projections over here on the right. As you can see, Patrick Mahomes is in our league projected to score 19.8 points in fantasy. So it's league-specific scoring. So you can kind of see what your team is expected to do. If you actually look down here at your bench and you maybe see a higher projection, or you just see somebody that you want to swap out, you can really press on anywhere over here on the left-hand side. Let's just say I want to swap out my quarterback because I am crazy and I don't want to play Patrick Mahomes. Well, if I click on quarterback, it actually brings up my available quarterbacks on the bench. So I could just click on Baker Mayfield and it'll just put him right in there. But we're not going to do that. And same thing for the rest of your team. So if you get a little bit confused about the flex, that's a great way to just press on flex, and any of those players can play in it. Now, is a good question from Will earlier, but your player will lock and won't be able to be moved like that. They'll actually be locked in this, their little QB or RB that'll be grayed out at game time. So Thursday at 8:20 p.m., Patrick Mahomes is locked in. So it's generally a good rule of thumb. You can see Rashee Rice also plays on Thursdays. So even though he was a flex player, I moved him to wide receiver because Mike Evans doesn't play until Sunday at 4:25. So it's a minor little thing. Just try to put your later playing players in the flex, but it's not that big of a deal. The other thing, if you click on a player, like you see these little Q's next to the name, if you want to know, that just means questionable. You'll see D for doubtful or O for out, P for probable. I don't know if they really use that or not anymore, but if you want to figure out what's going on with them, you can kind of click on the player. It'll bring up all of their stats, their projections for the years. That'll turn into actual stats as the year goes on. Here's their matchup in the center, where you can actually go, and once that's live, you can click on that, and you can actually follow each play of the game if you don't have time to watch it. But if you want to look at their outlooks, kind of have a little write-up by ESPN or whatever there. But if you want to look at injuries, this is what I always do. I just click on the player. You can go into recent news, and you can see the most recent stuff. ESPN's pretty quick about updating this stuff. But you can also look online, Twitter, Reddit, all that kind of stuff too. So that's kind of what you're going to want to do. I personally like to go through and admire all my drafts picks and read all the nice stuff that ESPN has to say about them. So anyway, moving on to the matchup. This one's pretty self-explanatory. It'll tell you kind of how you're doing and how you're projected to do, your win probability as the game goes on. Whenever the players are actually playing, they'll be highlighted, and you can click on it and it'll take it to that player. And then once again, you can go to that matchup there again. But really, you can go into the league settings and see what the scoring is. I promise once there's actual points here, you can actually click on the points and it'll tell you what you're getting the points from. But basically, your quarterback throws passing yards, throws a touchdown. Your running back rushes yards, catches passes, rushes a touchdown, catches a passes. And then your receivers catching passes will get you points. Defense is a lot more complicated. I'm not going to get into explaining that. It's just the fewer points they give up and the more interceptions and turnovers they force, the more points you're going to get. You can also be super nosy about everybody else's matchups and kind of look around and make fun of people for losing and stuff. So that's pretty much all you really need to know. There's some other stuff on the screen here, but really you can kind of just track the live players and then also kind of look down here and be sad at that bench player that did better than the one that you played. Anyway, moving on, we'll go over to players. This is where you'll manage your team in between the weeks. You're going to have, back here on your roster, you're going to have people get hurt. You see Keenan Allen and Addison already are at it for me. You guys might already have players that are out. Stuff's going on with Jamar Chase. So you'll be dropping players. Some of these bench people are going to turn out being nothing, so you might drop them. So the way that you'll manage that throughout the season is from a free agent budget. So everybody has, if you go to, and I'm actually not even sure where it shows this, but you have a $100 budget, if you just want to believe me with that, that you have for the entire season. So whenever you go on Tuesday after the games are all done, say your wide receiver, one of your wide receivers went out for the season, or, it turns out that Grandpa Adam Thielen, had 3 touchdowns and you want to pick him up. Well, you need to go into the player here. And right now you can just add and drop players as you see fit because the season hasn't started. But once it starts up, you'll actually have to go in and submit a waiver claim for it. And it's a blind auction, basically the way that works. So if you think nobody's going to pick up the player, you can probably get away with just doing like $1. But if it's somebody that had a hot week and it's going to be heavily contested, you probably need to use some more of that budget. So that's how that works. If anybody has any other questions on that, that's a little bit more confusing, but that's basically how that works. And then finally, the league. This one's fun to just kind of mess around with and just kind of learn what some of these do, but at the top, you'll have your scoreboard, just kind of like the matchup sheet, just shows all the scores for our league and standings. You'll see we don't have any divisions or anything. This is just top 10 or top 6 teams make the playoffs. So your record is going to be really all that matters. Your division's not going to matter at all. And this is probably a good time to actually kind of explain a little bit more how you get wins and losses in this. So each week you have your head-to-head matchup like this. This will be somebody different each week. I think we play everybody twice. I think it's just like a round robin like that. But you can look on the schedule here and you can see all your matches. But the way that this works basically is you're going to get a win or a loss based on if you scored more points than the other team. That's pretty simple. All of your starting players added up all of their starting players added up. So if you score 121 or if I score 121 and Taylor scores 117, like ESPN says, I'm going to win. We'll see if that happens. Then you'll also have the league median that you'll be playing against each week. So the average score for everybody, say, the lowest score is 100 and the highest score is 160, and it just turns out the league average is like 123. Well, my 121 points that I just beat Taylor with wasn't enough to beat the league average, so I actually lose against the league average and go 1-1 for the first week. So that's just one example of how that would happen. You can go 2-0, 1-1, or even 0-2 if your team really stinks it up. And then, at the end of the year, whoever has the 6 best records will then go into the playoffs, which is all TBD now. And then it's 1-week playoffs. And then somebody wins at the end of the year. The last week that we play in the fantasy is the second to last week of the NFL season. So it doesn't go into the playoffs or anything like that. We exclude the last week because usually doesn't matter for seeding, and people will usually pick their stop playing their starters. So anyway, this has gone on for long enough. This is about 10 minutes. There's definitely a lot more to learn about this stuff, but and see, look at that. My headset died. It was even tired of hearing me talk, but I'll see you guys later.